Welcome, everyone. I would like to call the February meeting of the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission and the joint meeting with the Youth Commission to order. Can we have a roll call, please, of just the traffic commissioners, Amanda?
Yes. Chair June Hansberger. Present. Vice Chair Patricia Trouth.
Present.
James Gross. Present. Glenn Johnson.
Present.
Harold Standerfer.
Here.
David Thiele.
Here.
And Jim Wong.
Here.
Can we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. First order of business is approving the minutes from our November meeting. Hopefully, everyone has had a chance to look over the minutes. Is there a motion to approve? Any changes?
I move to approve.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, on to item number 5. The next agenda item is oral communication. This is the opportunity for the public to come up and address any issue they have with us. There's a 3-minute limit, and just so the public is aware, we cannot engage in dialogue with the public speakers on the issues they bring to the commission because they are not on our published agenda. However, we are listening and we can address the issues at the end of the meeting. So with that, do we have any public speakers, Amanda?
We do not tonight.
Okay, great. Let's move on then to agenda item number 6, which is special presentation, proclamation, and announcements. The first item is 6A. It is the Sheriff Department data report, and I see that we have Traffic Sergeant Jeremy Collis here this evening. Thank you so much for being here.
If I may, Chair, Abe Anderson, traffic engineer here. Something I'd like to clarify, as commissioners have probably noticed, we are missing the regular sheriff's monthly report for our citations and collisions in this month's agenda. We're still working on this, but these reports combined with our crime statistics and other pieces of information that are released by our Sheriff's Department are not, I guess, publicly released on the city website anymore. There are some complications that we're working through to see how we can find a way to continue having the traffic chapter of that report at the Traffic Commission presented. The concern mainly is the data that was presented on the city website was a lot of time taken out of context. There's a lot of background information that's not available to public, and there are some just numbers in there. And the management's concern is that there needs to be a lot more information in there to clarify why some numbers go up or go down, or why is this data presented like this? So that was a concern that we haven't been able to yet figure out the way to have a set of data that's presentable to commission and public. But I think we might have a solution, because the traffic citations and collisions is a lot more clear than other crimes and other pieces of information and other statistics in that report. Maybe we can find a way to keep the citations and collision history piece out of that report and still have it on the Commission's agenda. That being said, we do have, with the help of our traffic sergeant, we do have the last 3 months that we were dark data tonight. If we want to go through them, I can present those, and Jeremy can go through them. This is the January list, I believe.
And I looked through them today, the 3 months, and nothing really stood out to me. The areas of concern are your typical El Camino Real. There is an area down on Encinitas Boulevard, just west of the 5, that seemed to have a higher rate of collisions, but nothing really stood out as far as anything that really, really impactful.
This is the data for January. Let me open February.
There is also one thing worth noting. I mentioned on these slides here the citations, the data is taken at the first of the month. And as I mentioned previously, so not all the citations have been inputted at this point. So your citations are lower. And you can see that if you look at the December compared to the one that we send over to the city. They're taken from two different sources. So the citation data is much higher on the one that the station actually sends over each month. For example, December is 158 as far as citations go. And on the maps here, it's actually at 123. So there's a little bit of discrepancy there.
Yeah, the number of collisions seems to be pretty constant in the mid-80s. And citations, I could see like 130, 140 about that.
Sergeant Collis, could I ask a question? So is there any attempt to normalize these accident rates by the amount of traffic? Because really what you want is number of accidents per 1,000 vehicles or something like that, to determine how dangerous an intersection is, correct?
Yes, how do you mean though? I'm sorry, I don't
Oh,
understand.
to normalize the number of accidents at some intersections, say Encinitas Boulevard and by I-5, by the amount of traffic. So, because if a location has many more accidents per, say, 1,000 cars than some other location, then it definitely is more dangerous. So that's why I was asking whether it's normalized by the amount of traffic as opposed to just the absolute number of accidents. You understand what I mean?
Not really. You mean reducing actual?
No. I'm just saying that the number of accidents should be proportional to the amount of traffic that you have.
Right.
In other words, if you have much more traffic, then you're likely to get more accidents.
Correct.
So, but a location that has less traffic but the same amount of accidents as another location, that means that the accident rate is much higher per 1,000 cars or so.
Right.
That's what I mean by normalizing by the traffic rate. Basically, you're taking the number of accidents, dividing by the density of traffic.
So you're asking for the data as far as what that would be?
Well, yes, I was wondering whether there's any attempt to do that, because I think that really is a better way of determining what what locations are more dangerous.
Sure, that's not something I would do. I don't know if our analysts would do that type of work. Maybe engineering department probably would do something like that.
Yeah, so our local roadway safety plan, what you're saying is kind of in line with the systemic safety approach that we had when we did like a historic analysis of the collisions in the city and the rates, and based on million miles traveled on each roadway and the classification of road and different characters of roads. We went one step beyond that in our LRSP. What we did was not only we looked at the collision history at different roads based on the volume on that road, but we identified similar characters of a roadway that caused those collisions, and on similar roads, even though they might not show the same number of collisions in the history of collisions recorded, we did recommend the same treatment, same improvements on those roads. The fact that we got lucky and haven't had the collisions on those roads, but if it's a 50-mile-an-hour road with no sidewalk, no proper shoulder, no bike lane, and we're seeing a lot of bikers being hit or a lot of pedestrians being hit on the side of the road, then the same improvement scenario should apply to that other road that has zero collision history just because it hasn't happened yet. So that systemic approach did identify a good bunch of improvements citywide at different classifications. So we do have it as a document of our Vision Zero. Now how we can implement and identify and improve those sites that were identified, that's a different story with the funding and the work plan of the city. But that kind of analysis that you suggested, I think it's more on the city side than our sheriff's department.
Okay.
Maybe we can utilize that data to kind of help them with what would be the better locations to like implement your enforcement efforts. We can use that data to help them. I don't know how you currently choose, like enforcement locations. It's probably based on judgment and experience, but maybe we can use that data to kind of help the normalization that you suggested. That can be used by us to identify a priority list. Okay, these are locations that can be used by Sheriff's Office for implementation.
Okay,
For
I think
enforcement.
that's a good idea. Thanks for that, Abe. But the sheriff's data is also very useful for temporal changes. So like if 1 month there's 50 accidents instead of 20, something like that, then that'd be an indication that something's changed.
For sure.
Right? So do you keep any statistics on that? Because that'd be kind of interesting to see. Compare, last month versus this month, or last year this month at the same month versus this month. So we have something.
Well, we use the data that we share here. We look at that,
Okay.
and we also do what we call an impact meeting for our station once a month, where all the supervisors at the station get together and we look at all the crime statistics as well as traffic statistics, and then we base how we move forward based on all those numbers.
Okay, thank you, Sergeant.
I think one thing on that, Sheriff, just to go into what Commissioner Wong was saying there is, one thing that'd be great to see, and I looked at these maps a lot. What you ultimately would want to see is that when you have a high number of accidents, so the biggest gold circle, then next month will be followed by the largest blue circle, meaning clearly you're seeing an area of high impact. That's the circle is the largest. The next month you'd see that the blue circle would be the largest in that area. If we think that there's an area of, there's correlation that maybe, or there's causation that people driving fast causing accidents in a lot of areas, so then let's enforce more there. Ideally, we'll drive down accidents in that area, or collisions in that area, I should say. The one thing I'd say, and I think this is pretty universal if you look at these 3 months, and since I've been on the commission for over a year now, is the largest blue circles are south of Birmingham, and almost always the largest gold circles are north in Leucadia and El Camino, in that area. And so I think we could do more to attack the gold circles with enforcement that would show that, hey, we're writing the most tickets in those areas with the most collisions.
And I'm sorry, what were those locations south of Birmingham?
So south of Birmingham, and you can look at other months I know over the time, you generally have the most enforcement there, the largest blue circles, but you don't have the largest collision circles. The largest collision circles are generally in El Camino, kind of the hot spots we know. So I would just think, let's write more tickets in the area where we know there's most collisions and see if that might, change the collision data.
Sure, but so I have the statistics from Argus as well as for collision data for December. That was from the December statistics that were sent over. The map on that looks much different. There's only 31 collisions on that map for the month of December, and that's basically reports written. So a lot of those dots you're seeing are either something that was called in and we just don't, there's nothing to investigate, or it's private property or something to that effect. So the areas, and a lot of these collisions are, it's not just for speed. There's it could be for rear ending, which is speed. However, it could be somebody on their cell phone and things of that nature. So there's a lot of reasons why people crash, and sometimes it's a little more difficult to just approach those areas and focus on the reason for those collisions. A lot of the El Camino collisions, though, are private property collisions in parking lots.
I mean, just not to push back too hard, but we've had 2 deaths on El Camino. We had a death on El Camino via Cantabria in December from a high collision speed. We've had 3 deaths in that area in the last 6 months, 7 months. So I don't know of any other area in the city that's had 3 deaths in 7 months. So yeah, clearly maybe it is parking lots, but there's also some really bad activity happening in those areas, and there's not the corresponding citation bubbles like you see in Cardiff.
The fatalities are not one specific location. They've been all over the city from what I've... We had
Via Cantabria in December.
Yes.
Which was just off El Camino. We had El Camino pedestrian. We had El Camino bicyclist June, and then in October.
Right.
We had 6 last year, nothing to be proud of, but 3 in the last 7 months were all in the area where there's clearly tons of collisions and not as many citations.
Right. I mean, we do focus on areas where we have high rates of collisions. We also focus on areas where we get complaints from, which we get a lot of complaints from all over the city. So we also utilize the areas where we know people are speeding. Having been a motor in the city for 7 years, I know the areas where I can essentially write a lot of tickets.
Yep.
And where the people speed, and then there's areas, some of which you named, we'd sit there for an hour and not have anybody to pull over. So there's not really a, like for the one person, unfortunately, is a pedestrian. There's enforcement efforts would not have changed that.
Understood.
All these have been solo vehicle that we've mentioned. So yeah, it's. I would like to just say we go out there and write more tickets in this one area and then reduce, but that just doesn't. It's not necessarily how it works.
Sergeant Collis, thanks for the information. Would you say, just in categorizing these citations, I know we looked at some information just before we broke in November. Would you say that, thank you, would you say that is still distracted motorist, over speeding, and I know you categorized a few of them.
Yes, in my opinion, distracted driving is one of the leading causes of collisions. It's just based on my own personal opinion, what I've seen since being a traffic deputy since 2012. And the problem is that they're hard to report. So, for example, you have a collision from someone on their phone. They're not going to tell you that they're on their phone. They're going to tell you, oh, I looked up, I was looking at the radio, and boom, they stopped in front of me, or I didn't see the bicycle come out in front of me. Well, you didn't see them because they're on their phone, but they won't disclose that, and we can't just take their phones and start going through them. So I would like to see and the other thing is we are limited on, obviously, people out writing tickets. We have 4 deputies for the city of Encinitas, and one person has been in training, got hurt, and now he'll be back on the road here soon, so we've actually had just a few motors. But I would like to see more enforcement on distracted driving for sure, and that's something I ask of my folks. And as motors, as we get back to the number of motors we should have, hopefully those numbers will go up as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those Coast Highway and Lagoon citations with the big blue dot there, are those speeding? Most of those speeding? Would you say? And is that?
Yeah, those are primarily speeding.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I just have a couple questions. Thank you so much for presenting the data and answering questions this evening. As I reflect back that our data that we've been provided has changed, which we have asked for these changes in what we were given, and now we weren't given any data this month to look at beforehand, which is concerning to me because I feel like out of, excuse me, everything we do, looking at this data lets us see how safe different corridors are, and I really feel like it should not only dictate where you guys are going to be patrolling and helping keep us safe, but I think it should also be a huge part of where the city decides to spend money on making our streets safer. And I know that before we were provided information like on the accidents, if it was a bike versus a car, if it was a car versus a car, an e-bike versus a car, people versus cars, or people versus bikes, or whatever it is. And we now don't have that data. So and I don't know, is that, Sheriff Collis, is that on your end, or is that, I'm trying to figure this situation out, or is that on the city's end? Because I know for a fact that we had in Leucadia, a woman was hit by a car at an intersection on La Costa. I was almost hit by a car on Leucadia Boulevard just last week when I had a green walk signal. And I looked both ways, but somebody, they just didn't see me and went through the intersection and almost took me out. So I want to see what our accidents are and figure out how we can make those intersections safer. And so could you... Are you still providing this information to the city and then the city is deciding not to provide it to us? Is that what's happening, or?
No, this month it just hasn't been compiled, and that monthly statistics package hasn't been provided to the city yet. So
Okay, sorry, but we didn't get data from, last time we saw you was November, so we didn't see December or January yet. So
I can, Chair, clarify. What you said is correct. We, other than this month, that as Sergeant Collis mentioned, wasn't sent yet to the city. The other months, I think December and January, yes, was sent to the city. But as I mentioned earlier, there is this discussion happening at our city management level and our attorneys and our risk management with regards to how this data can be presented to public with the type of information that is here. The concern, I mean, to simplify, is that like all these brown donuts that you see here are collisions. Do we need to clarify what kind of collisions these are? As Sergeant mentioned, like you look at this, oh wow, we have like 20 collisions on El Camino. What is the city doing? But then you go deeper, you look at the collision reports, and you notice like 18 of these are happening in the parking lot, or they're not like speeding collisions. They're all a vehicle sideswiping another vehicle because of distraction at like 20 miles an hour. So it's not a speeding issue. It's more about a geometry of the road or distraction or other. So that's the concern that our risk management, our attorneys have, our city management office has, that what kind of information it's good that we present to public with no context, is just let them absorb the information and analyze by themselves, or we can create a better, more comprehensive type of report, maybe every quarter, every 6 months, that's more information that's more clear to public. That's the concern that they have, which I cannot say that we will have this similar report next month or not. We're still working on this, but it's not on our sheriff's office. They do generate, our I think Captain Nelson still sends a summary of some sort to our city manager's office and our attorney's office, but I'm not sure how that can be, I guess, revised or modified to the level that we can present to public at a commission.
Okay, I just have a couple follow-up questions. But the data that we used to get would have these accidents, and then we got a table that listed what was happening. Like it was a lot more information, which is kind of what you're saying you want provided. So we did have for a while some data tables that actually broke it down by accident, if I remember correctly, which
Yes.
sounds like what you're saying, you know, or I shouldn't say you, sounds like what the city manager and the lawyer are saying, right? That
We are working on it.
Okay.
It's not, but I just mentioned the concerns that I received. We are working on to figure out what we can. I would say I'm 80% positive we can get to a level that will satisfy Traffic Commission.
Okay, one other question, though. This is public data, right? This is nothing, you're not releasing private information. This is public data that sheriff is providing to you.
If a record-
I'm just clarifying. There's
Correct.
nothing like, okay, so it
If a
is all.
record is generated by Sheriff's Office and sent to our city managers or our director's office, it is public record.
Okay.
Unless it's private information like contact information, address, license plate. So collision reports, there are privacy concerns. We don't release collision reports.
Sure.
But something like this, if the report is generated and is emailed or mailed or whatever to the city hall by the sheriff's office, it would be public record. That is another concern that is being discussed. So we are trying to, when I said it's under consideration, we are looking into this, that, hey, like, what's the purpose of not releasing data at a commission if it's an actual public record? So we're looking into all these things to figure out what we should do.
Okay, thank you. I would appreciate it because I think all of us really look at this data and want to know what's happening in our city. And then my last question was, there was a woman hit, or a person hit, I think in Leucadia. Do you guys have, was that reported? Do you guys have details on that accident, or no?
When was that? Are you talking just a vehicle collision, or?
A vehicle and a person, yeah. Was it in December, January? January.
I would have to
Okay,
get
I
more
just didn't know if
specifics.
there had been any, looking at that intersection and more patrol there, but no.
No, I'm not, I don't know which, because it actually happens more frequently than people realize.
Okay.
Pedestrian versus vehicles, and oftentimes they're minor, or, obviously if they're bad injuries, we hear about it more, but if sometimes they're just minor and they I don't hear about it as much.
Okay, thank you. Any other commissioners?
I mean, just again, for us in the, the questions we get from the public, and these data, it is available to the public. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just to recap the year, we had 6 deaths. I believe every death was north of Encinitas Boulevard. The motorcycle death, I can't remember where that was, if it was Santa Fe or Encinitas Boulevard.
300 Encinitas Boulevard.
That was Encinitas?
300, yeah, 300
Yeah,
blocks.
so we had 6 deaths last year. Every one of them was north of Encinitas Boulevard. If we give this to the public, they eyeball this. The eyeball test says it looks like we're doing more citations south of Encinitas Boulevard. So it's like, I think it's questions like that where we have to have better answers. Because 6 deaths is, for a city of 60,000 people it's 1 out of 10,000 per capita. Like that's pretty high anywhere in the U.S. So that's the kind of things I think we got to be we have to have more information on, because that's a pretty concerning trend.
Yeah, Commissioner Johnson here. I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Department for their enforcement efforts. The more visible the enforcement is, the more people will tend to slow down and observe the required speed. And I'd just like to see more visibility and, of course, people responding by going more slowly.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank the Sheriff's Department for the information. It's very helpful. Anybody realize you're the messenger here on the data issue, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate the reports we've seen in the past. I do find it a little troubling, though, what you've shared with us about not sharing the information that is coming forward from the Sheriff's Department.
So just
And
to-
I hope it can be worked out, because the information is useful, and if we're to perform our duty in our mission here in terms of making suggestions to the city council, it's information that we need.
Just to clarify, we have sent over November, December. We just have not, our analysts have not compiled the January data yet.
Right.
You're still going to get it. Unfortunately, this month it'll be late. And I believe it's geared more towards the city council meeting timeframe than this date, because it just also takes a while to compile the data. Tickets need to be inputted, collisions need to be inputted. So it's not, on the 1st of February, the data is not available. That's why these maps that we're looking at are not complete with the citation data, because they have to give it a good week there's literally a person sitting there with each ticket we write and putting it into the system. So it's not immediate, and so that's why there's a bit of a delay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff Collis. And I do understand, you are providing us the data. It is just getting hung up here. So thank you for all your work. We really appreciate it, and I'm glad to know that we will have 4 patrols back out? Is that what you said?
We'll be up to 4 motors soon, but yes, there will be.
Okay, that's great. So we'll look forward to their report next month.
Sure.
Thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, I think we need to move on to item 6B, which is the City of Encinitas Permit Parking Program, the study initiation to update the municipal code. And that code was not linked either for us, so none of us have been able to see that. At least it wasn't linked on our agenda packet. So hopefully you can go over that with us, because I didn't have a chance to look at that.
My apologies. Yeah, the code is available on the city website, but we could have attached it to the agenda. Nothing major here. Just an announcement that the study that council directed us to implement has been initiated. We have hired a consultant that will be reviewing our existing permit parking program, Chapter 14.41, with all the concerns that has been in the city with parking impact, adjacent residential properties, adjacent commercial properties, the spillover of parking demand onto adjacent neighborhoods, the concern of quality of life that we had, on the neighborhood that was recently established, a permit parking zone was established. So this consultant will be evaluating different concerns and similar cities that have done permit parking programs and would provide a new program for the city that will be reviewed by Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission, by Planning Commission, and will be taken to council probably in June or maybe August. I think July, the council is dark. But sometime in summer probably. There is going to be a first community meeting and a second community meeting. The first community meeting would be to receive public input for the initiation of the study, to hear residents' thoughts and what they want to see in the program and what their concerns are and how we can modify and tweak the existing program of the city, so the consultant knows what our residents want to see in the program. And then later on, when the draft of the program is available, there will be another meeting to present it to public before taking it to the commissions and council. Now, there is an idea that because commission was involved in the previous iterations when we brought our revision suggestions to commission and the program that was presented for the Villa Molina neighborhood last year to the commission, there is this idea of if we can work out the logistics, have our March meeting as a special meeting to have the community meeting at the commission, so it would become a specialized meeting just to discuss our permit parking program. It's not yet final, but we're working on it. That's basically the gist of this item. I wanted to update the commission on what's going on. Any questions about the program? About what's going on, basically?
I have a quick one. So you and your staff wrote the permit parking new guidelines, and this commission was in support of that, right?
Correct.
Yeah, we were all in support of that. So what has changed is that now council has hired a consultant to look at what you guys drafted up. Is that what?
Correct. Yes, that's. I mean, as you mentioned, we did take it to council. However, at that meeting, council heard from some residents that felt like we didn't go the above and beyond that the residents felt like we could have, and there are still opportunities for improvement. And we only looked at it with a traffic engineering lens, and we still only looked at traffic, parking supply and demand, and other concerns of quality of life. The non-engineering pieces were not seen in the program, and they should be seen. The equity and these other concerns. So that's why council suggested, hey, maybe the fact that your traffic engineering division, maybe there needs to be a consultant that's specialized in these kind of programs. So we were directed with hiring somebody, which we did, and hiring a consultant who is a professional in this. They have done multiple parking permit programs for different cities. Dixon Unlimited is the name of the consultant. They've done multiple cities. So that's where we're at.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure you'll keep us updated when the meetings are.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we anticipate, if we can, I said, work out the logistics of announcing it publicly and invite whoever we have to invite to maybe have it at the next commission meeting as a special meeting.
Okay, thank you.
If there is no other question on this item B, there is a update, not an update, but something I'd like to mention to the commission. We do have our former city engineer, Mr. Chris McDosky, here tonight. He is the person who hired me in 2018 and was with the city for a good, I think, about a year. And unfortunately, due to family reasons, had to leave us and went to Whittier. And very recently, he has joined the city again as our assistant city director. He's not a formal city employee at the moment, but he's with us now, and I'd like to introduce you to him. And yeah, he trained me the first meeting that I had at the commission in April of 2018. He was here and he trained me, and it was the first commission meeting we had together. So I did like to introduce him to you.
Well, welcome to the meeting. Great to have you back in the city. And that's great. Thank you for being here tonight. Yeah. Okay, so I think we're done with item 6B. So now we're on to item 7A, which is our joint meeting of the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission and the Youth Commission to discuss bike safety. Amanda, could you please do a roll call? Do you have the list?
I do.
Okay.
Chair Carter Ballo. Vice Chair Colin Ballo. Sarah Charles. Sophia Gonzalez. Quade Kelly. David Leschensky. Harrison Kessler. Willem Ryan? No? And Benjamin Sue? Thank you.
Well, welcome, youth commissioners. Thank you so much for being here tonight. We really appreciate you coming out on a school night and sitting through the first hour of our meeting, or I guess it was 40 minutes. But we really appreciate having all of you here tonight, and we look forward to hearing from you. I think you guys have, Sophia has a presentation, or just, I'll let you take over.
Good evening, Chair Hansberger and members of the Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission. I'm Commissioner Sophia Gonzalez of the Encinitas Youth Commission, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Youth Commission about different ideas that we have. So Encinitas is an active community, and the addition of e-bikes and other popular alternative forms of transportation have impacted mobility safety. As a commission representing the youth community, we have a duty to support safety and education, and we have firsthand experience in some of the most vulnerable areas around schools and neighborhoods. We would like to present some ideas today to continue the progress you have been making. The 3 areas of change we would like to expand on today is enforcement, improvement, and education. Beginning with enforcement, an idea could be to provide additional crossing guards or flagmen for busy roads and intersections, especially around schools. This will help to foster safe transportation of all methods throughout those areas. In terms of road improvements, our city has already implemented improvements in some key bike traffic areas, which has made a big difference, so we are hoping to expand on this. One idea would be adding additional bike lanes into some of the roads surrounding schools. For example, on Nardo and Melba, instead of having sharrows between cars and bikes. There have been a lot of accidents in those areas, so we think that adding bike lanes could help reduce those. Moving on to education, we believe an idea could be contests for middle school and high school students to create an art or bike safety slogan or flyer that can be showcased at the new Arts Center opening in Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Arts Activity Guide for the summer. This would promote ride sharing for school traffic through Encinitas publications and school district newsletters. This will reduce the number of cars, helping with the flow of traffic and the speeding that comes when cars all get lined up. As we know, Encinitas thrives on creativity, and we want to incorporate some of that into our bike safety initiatives, such as mural projects on bike paths to engage local artists and students, to transform plain paths into vibrant trails that not only please the eye, but also highlight the safe biking corridors for both distracted or drifting drivers and cyclists. Overall, we are very committed and dedicated as the Youth Commission to doing our part by continuing to promote the resources provided by the city while being positive role models for our peers and younger students. We hope that our example will continue to encourage the youth community to make a commitment to safety and transportation alternatives.
Thank you very much for all those ideas. Those are really wonderful, and we appreciate you pulling them all together for us. I'm going to first see if we have any public comments on this item.
We do not.
Okay. Do any of my fellow commissioners have questions or comments? Okay, well, I have a couple then. First of all, I really like that you brought up, everything you brought up I really like. I like the idea of extra crossing guards, that's fabulous. I'm not sure if that is worked through with the schools, or if I kind of feel like it's the elementary schools and the high schools themselves that have to do that, but I think that is a great idea, and maybe we can have a city liaison reach out. I know that we have tonight, we have our mobility manager here, Mr. Buck, so maybe he in a minute could speak on that, how that works out. I just had a couple more things I wanted to say, and then maybe you could speak on that. I also did want to say the bike lanes on Nardo and Melba, we have looked extensively at that area to try and improve flow and safety. And I am pretty sure that our traffic engineer, Abe, and his entire crew of engineers looked at that, trying to add bike lanes and trying to figure out how we could make it happen. And I think part of the issue, but I'll let Abe correct me, is that space on those two roads are very limited, and that because of public property and the sidewalks, I think, that are there, I'm just not sure we were able to make anything other than Sharrows. I know we did discuss trying to move parking and try to maybe make a bike lane on one side of the road, but I don't remember where that stands, so I'm glad you brought that up, because getting you guys in and out of that neck of the woods safely is really, really important. And I know there are a lot of kids on bikes. So if any other commissioners have questions? And I did like the art piece as well. That is fabulous, and maybe, I don't know if our mobility manager also wants to take that on. I don't know if that would be something he could liaison with. So I don't know. Mobility Manager Bucks, would you mind speaking on those two items? I hate to put you on the spot. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I'll speak from here. Yeah, really like the comments of the Youth Commission, great ideas, and it's exciting to see this group representing the youth of Encinitas really interested in getting engaged in bike safety and education. That's really important. The city has plenty of things going on that we can collaborate on, that I can connect with the group about. We certainly have opportunities with upcoming special events, and then also some of the ideas that you mentioned with maybe contests or programs to engage students. Creating artwork, materials, and content that would resonate well with the younger audience would be great. That's something we can definitely partner on. So we look at those things. The idea of public art, that's interesting. I can talk to the traffic engineer about application of intersection art. That might be something that the city could consider down the road. I think that NACTO kind of language has updated a little bit to maybe legitimize that application, and then also MUTCD, I think, changed some language or struck some language, so maybe that could be something that we could take a look at, maybe identify some places around schools where we can make things more vibrant and bring more attention to conflict areas. So all great ideas. We'll continue to, connect with Youth Commission, and really great that you guys are getting engaged and that you see the importance in this, so look forward to working together.
I just wanted to ask you a quick question. I know that Pawlecki has a crossing guard. How does that work? I feel like it is the school district that does that, but no, I'm getting some head shakes. So can you explain how crossing guards work?
Yeah, the city of Encinitas has MOUs with both of our major districts, so with the Encinitas Union School District and the San Dieguito District, where basically the schools request crossing guards at school sites, and the city is committed to supporting 50% of the costs of those guards. Ultimately, it is up to the schools to hire the guard and to maintain a contract with that service provider, and then they invoice the city a couple times a year for us to reimburse the cost at 50%. We're taking to council on the 21st of this month amendments to those two MOUs to add additional crossing guards, one for Pawlecki Central School and another one for Degano.
Okay, fabulous. And then if this group of students was interested in trying to have a crossing guard at SDA or one of the other San Diego districts, how would they go about that? Should they contact their principal first, or do they reach, okay.
Exactly. The mechanism at this point to make a request for any additional guard locations would be through the school district liaison committee meetings that are held here at City Hall monthly. That's where those requests are discussed, and then after that, the process has become where city staff, along with sheriff, usually take a look at those sites during those peak hours, and validate that would be a good investment to make, and so then that would need to be added to the contract at that point via amendment to an MOU.
Okay, so since, Sophia, your group did bring up the idea of more crossing guards, you live it every day, so you probably have an idea of where the dangers intersections are and where you would like to see them. So maybe Mobility Manager Buck, could you give them the dates of that next meeting that's here if they wanted to speak there or figure, so they could arrange, does that make sense?
Yeah, and the next meeting is on the 21st, and I know that the principal and possibly vice principal from STA are attending that meeting, so I can certainly connect with them beforehand and let them know that there's been some interest voiced, but we can follow up as well on that.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Youth commissioners, did you have anything else to add?
Commissioner Kelly, yeah. So I know we were talking about the volunteers. If you guys know the four-way stop at Hygeia and Leucadia Boulevard, there's a volunteer there that my family calls like the Bike Santa. Or wait, no, what I said? Yeah, Bike Santa, because he's a volunteer there. I don't know if he's assigned with the school, but he works there and he kind of he brings a smile to everyone's faces while doing it. And I think that's something that when you see drivers, if you have the guard there, they'll kind of be arguing with you sometimes. And I think a big thing is when you're thinking about wrecks and stuff, I don't know if this is a great addition, but a lot of it's when you're angry, you're driving there, maybe you're not having a great day. I think maybe we need to train them in a different way and make them a positive influence rather than being somebody that's threatening there and oh, I'm making sure you're I'm checking your driving. And then also, so if you know the Sanford Project 145, there's a project in that area, and it's gonna the traffic is gonna increase significantly near Leucadia Oaks Park, and they made a safe crossing to Pawlecki, and I was wondering if it was possible to do that more north, because as somebody who lives there, there is a big struggle on getting to the 101 where the bike lanes are better, because in that Vulcan area, I definitely experience a lot of issues. I've nearly got hit 3 or 4 times, and it's to the point where I'm somebody who pays attention to the road and makes sure that I'm following the rules of the road. But there's definitely some times where I see people on their phones or they're just they're just going super fast down that strip. And I was asking if maybe there could be a safe crossing in that area.
I know one of our commissioners has a comment, but I did want to just jump in. You're talking about a safe crossing across the train tracks, correct?
Commissioner Kelly, correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Between Leucadia Boulevard and La Costa.
Thank you so much for bringing that up. That is in the works, and I know there's been, let me say it's in the works. The city is currently working, and they have a lot of, somebody jump in and help me here. There's a lot of, there's a consultant that's hired right now that's doing a study on a at-grade crossing right in that area that you are speaking of. So keep posted, keep looking back at this meeting and at the city council meeting for more information on how that is progressing. But it is progressing, and yes, I agree, it is safer to ride along the 101 than it is along Vulcan. So thank you for your comments.
Commissioner Johnson here. In terms of volunteering, I remember a while back one of my neighbors, Steve Gherkin, had a walking school bus program where volunteers would walk students to school, and perhaps parent volunteers ought to be recognized, because a lot of crossing help is provided by unrecognized volunteers.
Chair? First of all, thank you, Commissioner Gonzalez, for your comments and also your submission. I live near SDA and Ada Harris, and I'm a little aware of how there are a few bike lanes there. And we have considered that, as the Chair said, only Santa Fe has bike lanes, and Bonita and Nardo and Melba and Windsor and McKinnon could all use them, but there just isn't that much room. So I have to compliment you on having the bravery to ride those streets, because I would get a little wary of those too. I'm also wondering whether you have considered asking the city, combining your request with their the Environmental Commission, because what you're doing, and I have to compliment you on this also, is mode shifting from car transportation to e-bikes. So I know that there are like hundreds of e-bikes at SDA, and all those save a car trip. So that's something I know the council is very concerned about, is climate change and mode shift, and having that many fewer cars is a huge success. As far as Paul Ecke, that's a great neighborhood for biking and walking, except it's not very safe considering how busy, I'm sorry, the name of the street, Sealy, something like that. There just isn't any room. It's really unsafe there. You do have the mayor on your side, though, because he does ride his granddaughter to Paul Ecke on his bike, so you can enlist his aid too. I think you have a lot of points in your favor, and I compliment you on everything you're doing. And we are also, as the chair said, we are pulling for you, but we're saddled with the decades-old road geometry. There isn't enough room. I mean, I'd like to just close those roads and leave them bikes, but I don't think we can do that. So thank you, everyone on your commission.
This is Commissioner Kessler. So I wanted to address, I go to SDA. So going to school, there's the crossing guards that I think work for Ocean Knoll. And I think that the e-bikers that go there, they go on the road from between, they go on Melba between Belore and Nardo, and they go on the street, and then they switch to the sidewalk, and it's for the people that are walking, parents that are walking their kids. It's kind of, I guess, causes collision, not collision, but they're people are trying to avoid, and it's just I feel like there just needs to be signs saying e-bikers or bikers need to be on the road, because that just causes confusion for people that are walking to school or walking, or parents just walking back from school. And I think it's just I feel there just needs to be more a clear, I guess, a clear way of knowing how to get to school. And then coming back, it's also coming back from school, it's there's kids just weaving around cars and just trying to get home as fast as possible. And I think it just needs to be clear to the e-bikers that what the rules of the road is.
Thank you. I definitely agree, and it is dangerous to have e-bikes and walkers on the sidewalk. I asked for clarification at one of I think our November meeting about this, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but Sheriff, bikes are allowed on the sidewalk, correct? And even e-bikes are allowed on the sidewalk. Motorized bicycles are allowed on the sidewalk. So yes, I'm getting, except in the business district, which SDA is not the business district. So I had asked for clarification on this too, because I find it dangerous when there are walkers and e-bikers on the sidewalk. So I think what that would have to come down to is maybe some information from the school, and having the school ask students not to ride their bikes on the sidewalk because of the safety of all of the people walking there and the children. But as far as the city, I think putting up signs for enforcement, I don't think they can, because they're allowed to. So, but thank you for bringing that to our attention, and maybe that is something that your commission could work with SDA admin on, discussing and maybe coming up with what you guys think would be a safer route for all of those bikes instead of being on the sidewalk.
Hi, this is Vice Chair Colin Ballou, and I was just going to touch on that. I think it just comes down to kind of just a lack of e-bike education in our city, because I feel like a lot of kids my age or younger than me that go to our schools in the area don't really know like the rules of when, like a lot of, like even me, when I started riding e-bike, I didn't know whether or not I could ride on the sidewalk or when to ride in the street when there's no bike lane. So I think it all just comes down to kind of enforcing more education into our schools and kind of making some programs that would help teach kids on kind of the rules of the road, because at this point, like a lot of younger kids are riding e-bikes, and I just don't think there's like enough education for them to be safe on the roads. And then also I was going to touch on those roads near Seaside, if there's any solutions to bikers there, because when I'm driving in those areas, there's sometimes not enough room for two cars to be going simultaneously down the road at once. So with bikes combined with that, I feel like it's just hard all around. So.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to address first your question about education in schools, and I have an idea, and I would also like to maybe have Mobility Commissioner Bucks jump in on this too. I know that the city has right now they have a lot of education for e-bikes. I know it's on their website, and they've been running classes. But to your point, we have a lot of younger kids, and we have a lot of high schoolers riding e-bikes to schools, and they are parking their bikes on the school campuses. And I'm wondering if maybe Commissioner Bucks could talk to the school, the high schools and junior highs about, just like they do with parking a car on campus, you know, you have to take, I think it's called the Smart Start class in order to park your car in a school parking lot. It would be great if maybe they started a Smart Start bike permit class. And basically you just have to take the class before you can get the permit that allows you to park your bike on campus. And then that way, to your point, the kids could get the information, and I know that the city has worked hard to come up with bike education classes, and they've been also partnering with another group. So Commissioner Buck, could you speak to that, please?
Thank you, Chair. This is Mobility Manager Buck. Speaking to that, in Encinitas, yes, we do have a lot of education available. Although locally and at the state level, there's no requirement for bike education to operate an e-bike. The schools have done a really good job, especially at the middle school level, which requires students to take a course to then get a permit to park their bike on campus. So that's the closest thing there is to a requirement for education in our local schools. Also, our elementary school district has taken a similar approach where they're requiring education to be able to bring a bike to school. The San Diego district for high school students, well, for the district, district-wide, they are exploring online education, online curriculum. So that might be something that would be in partnership with the San Diego County Bike Coalition and some other partners, where that could be an online course that students would be required to take in order to ride a bike or park a bike on campus. So those are things that are in the works. The city continues to offer bike education classes twice a month. So that's something that we certainly encourage anyone who wants to operate a bike to take at the very minimum. So classes are out there. Certainly there can always be more, and the city is looking at a lot of strategies to get education to our students. The MOUs with our school districts, which were approved at the end of 23, right at the last council meeting of the calendar year, that put in place basically city support for our school districts to add as much education as they really want for the rest of the school year, and we intend to have similar MOUs for next school year. So basically at this point, all of our schools can hire the Bike Coalition to come out and teach whatever courses or assemblies meet the needs of their students, and the city reimburses the entire cost of those programs. So that's something that was approved at the end of last calendar year, and then runs through the remainder of our fiscal year, which lines up with the school calendar. And again, we'll be looking to continue that for next school year as well. So definitely more education to come. and it's still very much a work in progress, and there are a lot of good partners working on efforts locally, and then also the state is working on programs through the California Highway Patrol, so for online courses. So a lot out there, still very much a work in progress.
Thank you, Mobility Manager. And then I did have one more question for you. Just, is there any, are we expecting a law? Have you heard anything to come down from the state? I thought something was maybe in the works for e-bikes, but what do you know since you are our Mobility Manager?
Yeah, Assemblymember Berner's working on proposed legislation that would require licensure at the state level. So that would be anyone under age 16 operating an e-bike would need to take a course and then possibly have a state-issued ID. So that's something that there's a working group working on what that might look like. Of course, those things take time, so just waiting more information.
Thank you for that update. Any commissioners here?
Yeah, I want to thank all the youth commissioners for attending and talking to us this evening. You know, you talked about education, and one of the things I'd like to see maybe you could do is not only educate your peers, but also educate adults, because I think we all need to be educated a little bit more with electric bikes. Thank you.
And one last comment. I'm Chair Carter Ballou, and I have one more suggestion for. Are you guys familiar with Cawdor Street, which is right next to Capri, which is around where I live? And it's a really wide street. There's no parking on either side, and I think that would be an optimal location for a bike lane because a lot of elementary school students ride their e-bikes or normal bikes to school.
Thank you very much. That's a great suggestion. We can look into that.
Yeah, I just want to ask a couple of questions to the gentleman that mentioned Vulcan. Since the parking has been changed to parallel, has your mobility pattern changed at all? Are you using the dirt road that's now accessible to walking and potentially biking, or have your mobility habits stayed the same?
I gotta say, I haven't used that Vulcan as much. I think that's what I definitely use that, and I think that's definitely been helpful. But I think that you don't avoid that all the time, though, because I think that like that road is just kind of, it's hard sometimes because you have the two-way, and sometimes when you're going that way, somebody like, especially with all the rain, and I was walking the other day, and it's like it's a little weird because there's the like when you're going in that area, there's like flood air, like it gets flooded sometimes. And I know I was walking there the other day and I got soaked because it was like I was walking on that area that is designated and somebody just drove by. And so I don't know. I think it definitely, it's been helpful though. It's done a lot.
Okay, yeah, just curious. And then, you know, I'm curious, as a city, there's a lot of roads that don't have sidewalks. There's a lot of roads that don't have streetlights. As a kid growing up, I rode a lot at night. I'm just curious what your strategies are on roads without sidewalks, with roads without streetlights. Does this matter? Does this impact how you move? Or are you not allowed to go out at night? I'm just curious how that works.
This is Commissioner Gonzalez. Yeah, there have been a lot of different ways to get around that, at least for me personally. I tend to just go into the road, even if it's not a sharrow, and I know that's also pretty common with like left-hand turns. If bikers don't want to wait for the crosswalk, they'll just slide right into that turn lane, and that makes it pretty difficult to avoid collisions. And I think in terms of going out at night, I know, at least in my family and some of the families of people that I know personally, they require their kids to wear like construction vests that are really bright, have multiple additional lights to the just one headlight that usually comes with an e-bike. So having that, especially with younger kids, I know with that bill that was being talked about that the assembly members are trying to pass, that would also include, I believe, kids under 12 not being able to ride e-bikes on their own without like adult supervision. So I think that would also really help, especially with not knowing the rules of the road and having those areas without stoplights or sidewalks or bike lanes for them to be riding in, because it just becomes super dangerous for people who haven't gotten their license yet, so they haven't gone through all of the rules of the road and all of the different driver's ed things that are required for that type of thing.
So are you all allowed to ride at night? Think your parents allow you to ride at night?
I am personally, as long as I'm wearing the vest and I have the lights on.
Roughly. Okay. And then, sorry, final question. In terms of like routes you'll take, will you, instinctually, will you go on certain roads more than others? And like based on that, what kind of road would you choose? Thinking of streetlights, thinking of sidewalks, thinking of speed bumps. Is that something you instinctively, like your friends talk about, hey, let's go this way because we know there's something, or is that just, like, let's get, A to B, Google Maps, fastest way to get there, that's what I'm taking?
So for me at least, there's definitely like some spots where I'll avoid. For the most part, it's not because there's not a Cheryl or a bike lane, but more because it's really hard to get to the left-hand turn. So specifically like from, I'm not sure exactly what that intersection is, on El Camino, maybe Lucadia Boulevard. That one's really difficult to get from the bike lane to the left-hand turn lane. So I'll have to cross the road and then wait for the crosswalk. So that's mostly where the trouble like comes from for me. But I don't know. Maybe someone else can touch on their experiences.
Commissioner Kelly, I know I'm someone who goes to Moonlight Beach a lot. Yep. And so when I'm using that, I think if you go, I think it's pretty far north on Vulcan, there's like this turn where they're making new apartments, and that's a blind turn, and that is like really scary. There's cars like that will come down there fast and you cannot see them coming, and that's definitely very threatening. So I never go north that way. I think that even though the 101, the bike lanes there are really great, I still think I'm like nervous sometimes with the cars because sometimes they'll be pretty aggressive. So I like using like the back routes to get to Moonlight, which is honestly the best strategy. But like if you're not a local, you won't know that. And it definitely gets dangerous. If you go farther enough south, if you know where like the Encinitas surfboards area is, you know that like area right there, that definitely is a little confusing as somebody who like is like walking or biking. Like how do I how do I navigate that space? And that definitely gets a little dangerous in there. And then also if you go to the like just south of there where it's the last one essentially before you get to that area near Moonlight Beach, that is not like, I don't know if there's like, I know we had the sheriff here, like I don't know if they ticket a lot there, but I know that especially when you're crossing over from the Lucadia side, I think that can get like pretty scary on people coming down that hill pretty fast. And also if you go towards where the parking lot is in Moonlight Beach, people come down that hill really fast. And like sometimes they'll just blow by, and even though it's a stop. So.
Anyone else on that? And then my final question would just be, and this is anecdotal, but like, has ridership and walking, sort of the mode shift as Commissioner Wang talked about, like has that, I think that's increased over your time, or has it decreased over the last couple of years?
I think there's definitely been more with like e-bikes coming out more. There have been a lot more bikes being seen around, which definitely causes the issues with the sidewalks. And the lack of bike lanes, things like that. So I think it has increased, but there have also definitely been a lot of drivers around. So I don't think the amount of drivers has really changed, but I do think the amount of bikers has increased.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Kelly, yeah, I completely agree. I think that especially in that area that I was talking about, I see a ton more bikers. Like since the e-bikes became big, I'd say like maybe like 10, 12 within like a 5-minute range. I see a ton of them. And I also agree in the sense of like, I don't think the amount of cars has really changed though. Like I'd actually say I'd see more at that like intersection at like when I take that route to the Hygeia and Leucadia.
Okay, youth commissioners, thank you so much for all of your input. This has really been helpful and enlightening, and I'm so appreciative of all of your suggestions and input tonight. So thank you, and I hope to hear an update on all of your three main ideas. Hopefully we can follow up and find out what's happening with that. But if there's no further questions, then I will adjourn the 7A, the joint part of our meeting. So I guess, may I have a motion to adjourn the joint youth commission meeting? Anybody want to make a motion?
Vice Chair Colin Blue motions to approve.
Do I have a second?
Chair Carter Blue seconds.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thanks. Have
Thanks
a
for
great
having
night.
us.
All right, well, thank you very much to our Youth Commission. This next item was presented to Commission multiple, why doesn't this? AB 43, we have discussed this, I think once or twice before. So as you recall, we did present this to Commission a couple months back, the idea of what Assembly Bill 43 is, the new way we can set the speed limits, and how we have new opportunities to lower speed limits from the old way of just sticking to 85th percentile. Now we have some new options. We did take, after it was presented to Commission, we did take it to Council, requested direction on how they like to see this AB 43 be implemented in the city. We did provide us a direction of trying to maximize how much we can do in the city and then bring it back to them. The idea is go back to Council in March or April with a resolution that would establish these new lower speed streets and then start enforcing from July 1. Now, this here tonight is a summary of what staff thinks we should start as a first phase. It is scheduled to be heard by council this month in February 28th at council with whatever recommendation or suggestion commission would have tonight. The idea is, I'll quickly go over to kind of refresh commissioners. I'm not going to go through all the code changes. So there are two different avenues that AB 43 provides the city to lower speed limits. One is through these corridors called safety corridors, where city has to go through its collision history, identify fatalities and severe injuries, and roads with high severe injury or fatality rates will be going into the safety corridor. The caveat is the safety corridors that are identified cannot be more than 20% of the city network. In our city, based on the past 5 years of collision history that we reviewed and the fatality and the severe injury collisions, these are the list of the roads that will qualify as the safety corridors of the city, and these are less than 20% of the city network. So we're good there. We don't need to drop any roads. So these are, as you can see, all roads that have speed limits higher than 30 or higher. So that's the first piece. This is pretty cut and dry, collision history. We review them, identify roads, and then we can lower their speed limit by an additional 5 after doing our speed survey. The second piece that is a lot more flexible is roadways with high concentration of bikes and peds. Now, MUTCD, the bill left this to MUTCD to provide us information and guidelines on how to identify roadways with high concentration of bikes and pets. In the MUTCD, there are multiple criteria there. It says if within quarter mile of a roadway segment, you have these facilities, schools, senior centers, transit stops, roadways with sidewalks, crosswalks, or bikeways, roadways with signalized intersections or always stop controls, major employment centers, parks, medical facilities. If there are these somewhere, within quarter mile of those, on those roadway segments, you can implement the additional 5-mile reduction, which is a lot more flexible compared to the safety corridors piece. The safety corridor piece was pretty much just check the collision history and identify the roads, which we did. On these ones, if we wanted to go through all these, it would pretty much be a blanket over the whole city, which there are major concerns with implementation, enforcement, education. So what we decided to do as a first phase implementation was just start with the schools, because that was a concern with the council at the meeting that we had, a major concern. So we identified roads within schools, within quarter miles of schools, that we can lower the speed limit on those roads if they're residential from 25 to 20. Now we'll have a lot of roads in the city that the residential speed will now be 20. Before we had to do a speed survey to justify, now we can do prima facie 20. And there is a map that we attached to the report. Is it at the end of this report? Yes. So all these red lines that you can see here are our residential roads that will go from 25 to 20. These are the blue, I mean, it's tough to see, but these blue markings are our schools, and these are the roads around schools that will be 25 as a part of AB 43. Obviously, we'll need to sign all these roads because none of them have 25 per hour signage. We might do pavement legends on some, but this is the extent. I mean, it's a pretty significant speed lowering all around the city. And this is just residential. This is on top of all those other roads that I mentioned. And then on top of this, so we have the safety corridors, we have the quarter mile of the schools, and on top of that, there are roads. This was always a concern from council and commission. We do have roads, if you recall the colorful map that showed all the roadways of the city with speed limits of 30 or higher. There were roads on that map that had speed limits of 30 or higher that didn't qualify as a safety corridor due to their collision history and weren't in the vicinity of the schools. These are these roads. So we did utilize these other two criteria, roadways with sidewalks, crosswalks, and bikeways, and roadways with signalized intersections and always stop controlled. These roads do qualify with those two criteria to be, for AB 43 to be implemented on them. So now we have 3 sets of roads. So combining this secondary list with the safety corridor is basically all of our roads in the city that has 30-mile or higher speed limit. So there will not be a road that has 30 mile per hour or higher speed limit that AB 43 will not be utilized on it. All of these roads will get a 5 mile per hour reduction minimum. And then we'll have all those other red roads that are residential 25s that will become 20. This is basically the gist of what we're going to present to council. There are other opportunities, as said. We can implement a lot more if we go for all of these other ones, but we thought it would be a good start to start with lowering all these classified roads with 30 mile or higher speed limits, and then all these residentials in the vicinity of the schools. With that, I'm open to questions and comments from council. From commission, thank you.
Commissioner Wong?
Yes, first of all, thank you, Abe. You and your staff have done obviously a tremendous amount of work going through the 200 miles of roads that we have and quantifying each one and looking at speed limits, everything. It's been fantastic. I also want to, I heard you say that you're looking for roads with high collision rates, accident rates, and I don't think you should disqualify a road from your consideration just because it doesn't have a high accident rate. Because I know personally, I avoid roads that I feel are not safe. So I just don't go on them. And so there won't be an accident there. But they might be convenient if I could. An example is that S-curve on San Elijo west of Manchester. I don't go on that, even though it might be convenient to get to Cardiff. But I don't think there's any way I can ride that safely. I think San Elijo is already on your list, so that's no problem. But I'm saying just don't exclude roads because of that, because they don't have a high accident rate. Otherwise, thanks very much for what you've done.
Okay, Commissioner Johnson here. I noticed that Saxony is not on the list. It's another street that I think ought to be downgraded in speed limit. But my big question is, can we enforce these? And do we have the staff to enforce them?
I believe we can enforce it. It's just the new state law, so we'll see when we bring our tickets before the traffic court. And as far as staffing, it's like what we have currently. It's going to be, it'll open up. Some areas will be more likely to be enforced as to opposed, like right now we can go to some of these streets, we could sit there looking for speeders and won't find any. With this change, there would increase that, obviously. So I think as long as the courts are in favor of this, I don't see an issue. And I think they will be.
That's good. Another question here. The tickets might generate some revenue. How does that Pardon? Tickets might generate some. Right there. Tickets might generate some revenue. How does that revenue get distributed? Do you know?
Yes, there's, I don't know what the percentages are as far as who gets what, but I know I'd recently actually sent something over to the city from the courts. There's an accountant in the courts that distributes the money, and I don't know who gets what of it, to be honest. I don't know the percentage breakdown, because I know courts get some, city gets some, I don't know who gets what amounts.
Yeah, Abe, this is really, really exciting. And I'm very excited about this change coming. I think it's going to have a profound impact on the community and hopefully more of California cities. A question on, if you go to the map, I'm just curious if we could come up with like maybe some sort of standard for areas, neighborhoods that want slower speeds, understanding that oftentimes I think our solution before AB 43 to slower speeds was speed bumps, but then you got the kind of the fire issue with speed bumps. So if you were to look at, I'm representing Leucadia. If you look at Leucadia, just north of Leucadia Boulevard and west of the 5, you have these kind of, I live on the street, so I'm partial to this, but you have these long cut-through streets, and they're not up for slowing down. And I also know the fire department won't let us put speed bumps on a bunch of those streets because I know the neighbors have collected signatures there. Is there a solution for these neighbors where you could say, we could put these streets up for slowing the speed limits?
Sure. I said the first part where it says safety corridors are we're limited with the options that we have. Safety corridors based on the MUTCD and the bill language is just based on collision history.
Yep.
So this piece is pretty much done unless we have we reevaluate our collision history next year and come up with a new list. The second one is where we have a lot of flexibility. So if we can identify one of these facilities or one of these conditions within quarter mile of any road in the city, we can implement AB 43 on. So cut through, unfortunately, is not here, but I'm sure if we have a target, we are able to identify a crosswalk somewhere, a sidewalk, a stop control intersection, something. This gives us a lot of flexibility with regards to implementation. However, as said, I didn't go that far deep into using a blanket over the whole city and just implementing all of these. It would pretty much turn the whole city red. So,
Understood.
I'm certain if this is successful and we do well with our education and enforcement, we'll be able to start a second phase with our senior centers, transit stops, employment center, parks. There is a lot of opportunities to do more.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. Obviously, a lot of work went into this, and thank you and your staff for doing that. And I think it's terrific, you know, that the legislature gave us this opportunity to try to slow people down a little bit. I also note that Via Cantabria is on the list, and I just want to say thank you for that. It's been a street that I've been concerned about. I think the speeds there are particularly egregious at times. Could you review, I think you've talked about it before, but what the educational outreach will be like, you know, when this rolls out?
Well, we probably implement some changeable message boards around the city to notify public in advance of July 1, where this will be enforceable. Speed limit changes citywide through social media campaigns, maybe the city on its Twitter account, on its Facebook account, lower speed limits all around the city. Drivers beware or be advised that we will be having lower speed limits on these roads and neighborhoods. A combination of these, I think, would be good.
Be anything mailed to homes?
I doubt it. I don't think city has ever done anything like citywide, like a mailer.
Okay.
Commissioner Johnson here. My comment is that the local newspapers, the Coast News and so on, tend to pick up on city announcements. So I'm sure that this will be a matter of concern for them.
Commissioner Trout here. I guess, first of all, Abe, thank you for everything you've done. I mean, it's real clear you really have done a lot of research on this and really done your homework. When you first started presenting, you said something about it almost covers all the streets in Encinitas. Is that correct?
Apologies if I wasn't clear. What I was trying to say is that if I wanted to identify each one of these criteria, schools, senior centers, transit stops, roadways, all roadways with sidewalks, with bikeways, with crosswalks, all traffic signals, all stop controls, all employment centers, all parks, all medical facilities, and then draw a circle within quarter mile of these, it would pretty much cover the whole city. And by law, by the language of the bill, we are allowed to. I just thought it would be too much to start with basically every street of the city and lower everything by 5 miles. So we just chose schools for this first phase, and the map that you saw is roadways, residential roadways within a quarter mile of a school.
Okay.
We're not doing it citywide right now.
Yeah.
At this phase, it's not our recommendation.
Well, just being, playing devil's advocate, I'm just wondering if maybe it's just a good time to kind of do it throughout so it's not confusing. I was just thinking of, Commissioner Johnson was mentioning Saxony. And, that's not on the list, but that is one of those streets. I think there's like 3 different speed limits on that roadway. And
That's a good
it's
catch. I think
confusing.
we missed that because we did include all the roadways with the speeds of 30 or higher, and I do believe Saxony is 30, so it should be in there. I did take a note. We'll look at it. We can include Saxony for sure. There shouldn't be any road in the city that has the current speed limit of 30 or higher. That's not in this report. It should be there.
Yeah, I guess the other thing then is we get the word out, to make it clear to the public that this is something that we plan to implement throughout the city, I think would be good, so that, they understand that, so that it's not confusing to them. Thank you.
Thank you for doing this. It is amazing. I'm looking forward to the slower speeds. Is there any chance you could go down to the very bottom map for me? And then can you zoom in on Saxony? Because I feel like part of Saxony does have this red line. Am I right?
Correct. This is the part that I guess it's within the homeschool academy here, but no, all of Saxony will be included.
Okay, so all of Saxony, all the way to Encinitas Boulevard as well?
Encinitas Boulevard all the way up to Leucadia, and if
Right.
this is already red, yeah.
Okay, so,
Between Encinitas and Leucadia will be included.
okay, that entire stretch. So I do like that. I think that's a great addition. Can you now go and look, the youth commissioner spoke a lot about Vulcan and how unsafe Vulcan is for him. And even with the added turning the parking sideways, that opened up that dirt area, and people do walk and use their bikes along there. But as he pointed out, it stops in certain areas, picks up in others. So, sorry, I was going to say, if you can go to that map, though, for me. I started talking and didn't tell you what to
I
look
just
at.
wanted to make sure that both North Vulcan and South Vulcan are on the list. So they're both on our safety corridors. They will
Okay.
both get the lower speed.
Okay, so what is the difference between the red line on this map and then that up there?
So there is some overlap. So the red lines are all of the roads that are within a quarter mile of a school. However, our safety corridors are roads that were identified by their collision history separate from that quarter mile radius. And
Okay,
yeah,
so.
there is another map. Let me see if I don't have access to T Drive from here, Amanda, right? Yeah, there is another.
Okay, that.
Yeah, but there is some overlap. I might have, let me check if I have T Drive. No, there's no T Drive here. Oh yeah, there is some overlap, but look at that map as only the residential, to identify residential 25 roads. Everything else is on the report. Like, these are all the roads that have a speed limits of 30 or higher.
Okay,
These
and
roads
those are gonna go to.
combined with these roads.
So the ones that have 30 or higher are gonna change to 25 or 20?
Dropped by 5. Any road in the city that has a speed limit of 30 or higher, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50,
Okay.
55, whatever we have in the city, they will get a 5-mile reduction. All the roads on the map that are red and are currently residential not posted, they will get a posted 20.
Okay.
So a combination of these. So all the high-speed roads of the city will get 5-mile reduction. All the residential roads of the city that are red on that map within a quarter mile of a school will get an additional 5-mile reduction.
Okay. My last concern are two other of our east-west corridor roads, and that being Eolis and Hymettus. Both of those, lots of families cycle every day with their kids to and from Paul Ecke. So I don't know if it is a quarter mile away, but every single day I run every morning with my dog, and I go by multiple families on Eolis and Hymettus going to get to either the top roundabout and access Paul Ecke down through Orpheus there, or they go down and they take, they use the crossing guard with the stop, the four-way stop at Hygeia. So
So yeah, as you can
residents-
see here, Hygeia and Hymettus are both within a quarter mile of Paul Ecke. So these up to Leucadia Boulevard will get the 5-mile reduction. And
Up
Orpheus
to,
too.
but can you do it on the north side? Because everybody in this neighborhood rides their bikes, and these are the neighborhoods. Multiple times people on Eolis have put in and asked for traffic calming measures. And even though they get the signatures and follow the whole procedure with the city, it has been rejected from the fire department on both of those streets. So I guess I'm asking if you could add those to the 20-mile-an-hour zone this time, add all of Eolis and all of Hymettus, because these neighbors have waited, they have asked, they've come to meetings. And I mean, besides putting out the little kid with the flag sign that says slow kids, there's nothing else we can do. So I feel like this is something that we could do now to slow traffic, since we can't do the speed humps.
I tried to be uniform. Obviously, if we want to take an approach of concerns, I'm sure there are 10 other streets in the city that not exactly similar condition, but there are concerns over safety or complaints from the neighborhood, or our speed data collections would show there are issues there. I'm sure there are more streets. I try to follow a process to identify these roads, but if it's a recommendation from commission, obviously with your motion, you can add whatever streets that you like, and when I take it to council, I can say, this is the 7, these are the additional roads that were recommended by commission to be added.
Yeah, I guess as a Leucadia resident, and as James did point out, we have no sidewalks anywhere in that entire neighborhood. If you zoom out on that map where there's not a single red line for residents on north of Leucadia Boulevard and east of the 5 there. So we don't have sidewalks. That part of town does not have streetlights, and we can't get speed bumps because of different fire regulations. And I just feel like safety concerns, we have people on bikes every day going to and from school. I realize it is more than a quarter mile, but I would like to add those two.
I would have to find one criteria here that would justify lowering. It's not like, I know I did mention a blanket, but there has to be a way finding a park and go quarter mile off of that, or maybe an always stop. I'm sure there is a way
There is an
to
always stop
justify.
thing.
Yeah.
I feel like you just put it in.
Really funny things about the criteria is the idea that you have to have a sidewalk, which is interesting because the danger on those roads is there's no sidewalks, right?
No,
But
I
there's
understand.
a lot of people
It's-
walking and biking, and we don't have sidewalks. So like, but this wants there to be a sidewalk to get the lower speed. That's flawed, right?
I mean, it's new. It's a code that was just added in the last iteration of METCD. But I mean, as our traffic codes go, this is, I guess, a very, very flexible. I was very surprised when I saw this. Like our traffic codes are usually a lot more strict. This is as flexible as it gets when it comes to traffic. So if it's a recommendation by a commission, as said, I don't want to go, because as you notice in the report, there is a process in identifying these roads. I don't want to just add one road
Abe,
without.
I completely understand,
Yeah,
and
put it in your
I
motion, and
do really
yeah.
like your rules, and I want to follow what you have set up. It's just a bit crushing when you look at where the 20-mile-an-hour zones are and where things are getting slowed, and there's just nothing for that neck of the woods where people are using those stretches to get to school. And it is a shame it's more than a quarter mile. I know we're a mile from Pawlecki. I know, I run it all the time, and people in our neighborhood are even further, but with the advent of e-bikes, they're all riding their bikes there. So yes, fine. That's great. Thank you very much for that suggestion. I can, if nobody else has any other comments, I would prefer to add those 2 streets, Hymettus and Eolis, as a 20-mile-an-hour zone, if my fellow commissioners do support it. But I normally am such a rule follower, but.
Commissioner Johnson here, I would certainly support that. Another comment, there's a marvelous sign when you're driving to Escondido up the Del Dios Highway near Lake Hodges that says, "Welcome to Del Dios, a traffic-calmed community."
I would support adding those streets. And I have a question, if I may. I think I know the answer, but on Santa Fe, Rancho Santa Fe Road, the red line ends at where it says Carolyn Place, which is actually Carolyn Place does not run into Rancho Santa Fe Road. Carolyn Place is a cul-de-sac, but it stops there, and I assume that that's the quarter mile mark from the school. But on the rest of Rancho Santa Fe, there are things, I think, in the criteria that would allow the addition of the rest of that road from there up to 13th, which is near the Livenhain Pioneer Elementary and the middle school. If I'm not mistaken, well, I know that there are several 4-way stops along there.
Yeah, there are sidewalks, there are stop signs, yes.
That, could perhaps allow that to be included for the entire section of the road. And the other thing is just a comment on Cole Ranch Road, where the red line goes. That is such a lightly traveled road that I understand what you're doing there with the quarter mile. But the whole road should be, all of Cole Ranch Road should be, but it would not meet the criteria.
Many of these roads, the lines were drawn based on a quarter mile, as you mentioned, but when it comes to actually setting a speed is usually between two segments, so we will extend these to the nearest intersection to, like on this one, probably we'd be up to 7th.
Up to 7th would make sense.
Yeah. So we won't just stop them in the middle here.
Thank you.
Okay, of course, I support your suggestion, Chair. I'd also suggest adding McKinnon in Birmingham, McKinnon south of entrance to Community Park, and Birmingham east of I-5. Oh, you already have Birmingham there. Okay, sorry.
Birmingham is already part of it, but it's just McKinnon. Is that what we're looking at? Could you maybe, Abe, can you show us on the map up there, or show us so I can see it?
Only McKinnon between Birmingham north to the entrance to the community park.
So Birmingham east of the freeway is not marked here. I do believe it was on our safety corridors.
Actually, probably McKinnon all the way to...
McKinnon is all the way in.
Yeah, to Villa Cardiff, because that is a route to school that a lot of students use through SDA.
Correct. So this is McKinnon all the way.
And I think what he's saying is that the Birmingham stretch there, sorry.
Oh, this piece you're saying is missing?
Yes, that
Yeah,
piece is missing.
yeah. As said, these are lines drawn by our GIS software. Obviously, there will not be a segment that the speed limit doesn't change. The whole stretch will change. Yes.
Okay. Good, thank you. Okay, any other comments?
One comment on the
So far, I
enforcement.
have. Question.
Just on the enforcement, so we talked a lot about education. I know when we were doing the emergency declaration, we had recommended additional staff for Sergeant Collis. Did that get approved at all for additional enforcement?
I haven't heard anything since then about it.
You said that though, right?
We did request that. I don't know, I know we sent that up. That was in like one of our recommendations to council. But I don't know that that has been followed up, but that,
We have similar cases where commission, as you remember, we discussed about a letter that goes from the commission to city council with your signature. We can try that out, a direct communication between commission that commission feels like we need to have more staffing for Sergeant Collis. That can,
I do think we should draft a letter from the commission, so,
That'd be great.
yeah, I can work on that. And I'll, I don't know, does another commissioner want to? Yeah. Okay, James and I will take that on and bring that to our next meeting. We'll circle back with both you and Amanda to make sure we have the correct format. Okay, thank you.
all right?
And you were speaking, I think.
Oh, no, I wanted to make sure I captured all the roads for you to add it to your motion. Euless, Hymettus, McKinnon was there, so east, Birmingham east of the freeway. So basically 3 new ones, Euless, Hymettus, Birmingham east of the freeway.
Oh, and I think Saxony goes the whole way.
Okay.
You were saying
Correct.
Saxony.
Saxony
just
is
the
missing
whole-
for some reason. It has to be there, yes.
Yeah, yes. So we're looking at Birmingham on the east of the freeway. I think that's important too. That is a tricky stretch there. Okay, good.
All right, if you have a motion.
Sorry, yes, I'll run the meeting. I apologize. I got this.
Rancho Santa Fe is there on the list. It's a safety.
The segment that's missing.
No, the roadways that are on our safety corridors, The whole road will be included. This
Okay,
this
all right.
map is not representative of our safety corridors. This map, there is a better map that we made. It will be at the council reports attachment. This is only to show the residential roads,
Okay, thank you.
the non-classified.
Understand.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think we can wrap up 7B and move on to 8. We have A, which is the safety and mobility project updates. Do any commissioners have questions? We can pull that up on our own computers, I guess. Abe, did you have any input on this for us? Anything to notify us about? I did want to thank you. Vulcan is looking amazing. The restriping and the painting has been, it's made a world of difference, so thank you.
Sure.
And then, sorry, I interrupted. Did you have any updates for us?
I'm trying to open this file and it's not working for me.
Any commissioners have questions? Want to follow up about anything?
You know what? Okay. Yeah, if there is any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Our Z crossing is happening. They're constructing. They're pretty much done with all the concrete work. The median work is done. The sidewalks, they were working today. I think they will complete today or tomorrow, and the signals will be raised next week. So Z crossing should complete before the end of March. We should have a turn on. Our 4 signal left turn protections at the 4 signals, that's also in the works. The contractor was supposed to start this week. Our bike emergency projects, we're putting it out to bid this month, maybe next week or the week after. We anticipate awarding by end of March. The work should finish in the spring.
I don't see any asphalt or street on here, like repair. If you were done, I just wanted to ask, is Lucadia Boulevard going to get some improvement? Is that going to get re-asphalted and restriped? Right, after this last rain, there are quite a few potholes coming down from basically the golf course area, and as you approach the 5 freeway, it is just, even in my Land Cruiser, I accidentally hit them every once in a while. I'm like, wow, it's kind of big. What's
Our
the
pavement is
schedule?
not, our pavement program is not managed by the traffic division. It's done by our CIP team. I can certainly ask for a update being added to the next month's commission to have a list of the roads that will be repaved this year. They do have a list.
That would be great. Thank you. I would appreciate that. Okay, I think we can move on to B, Mobility and Traffic Safety Commission log.
If there's no question, I can open 8C.
I was wondering if we have any idea about the crosswalk on San Elijo and the Solana Beach. I just didn't know. I think we got an email, and I was wondering.
We did have a meeting with the Solana Beach engineering team just last week. We are pursuing other options. Well, it's not correct to say we are. They are pursuing other options. They wanted to initially just add a hawk there, a hawk signal, which wasn't supported by our staff here. due to consistency, we have pedestrian signals all around town. We didn't want to introduce a new traffic control. We suggested a traffic signal. They had concerns that this would impact the aesthetics of their residents and their view of the ocean, and the fact that it would have to basically rest on green for the majority of winter and fall when people cross a lot less. It would just sit on green there, and it's an impact to their residents. So we weren't able to get to a point where everybody agreed on a design. The new idea that Solana Beach is pursuing is to conduct a lane drop on their side, and we said we are open to the idea of a lane drop on our side to convert 2 lanes to 1 lane at each approach, maybe start somewhere around the State Beach before the State Beach entrance, drop it to 1 lane, and they drop to 1 lane on their side, so have a lot shorter of a crossing distance and create a Z-crossing situation there with RRFB that is only activated when a button is pressed. It's very early stages, but we supported the concept. They will be working with their council. If their council blesses it, then comes the funding, and if it's a priority of our council and their council and I guess the funding contribution from each side, how it's going to happen and the agreement between the 2 cities, that's the future. And obviously the Coastal Commission would have to approve the lane drop too. But that's
Okay.
where we're at right now.
Well, great. I'm glad there's some progress being made. That's good news. Anybody, any other questions?
And the 8Cs are typical development that we get from the engineer who reviews our development projects. If there's any question on these, I can ask him to provide an update to the commission for the next meeting.
Abe, can I just ask you a question about, it is one that is already in construction, but the youth commissioner who was talking about Vulcan and riding his bike, and he was talking about approaching La Costa Avenue, that blind curve from Vulcan. Are they putting in a bike lane there? I'm pretty sure that they are gonna do a sidewalk on either side of that. But do you know, is a bike lane also gonna be put in there? Or I don't know if there's space for that. I just can't remember.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm not sure if there's a bike lane there. I can take a look at it
Okay.
and update the commission. I don't remember.
But there is gonna be a sidewalk on both sides, is my understanding.
On the west side, it would be a wider DG path. On the east side, there will be a sidewalk.
Okay, yes. Good. Good.
Comment? Just looking at the Quail Meadows project, which of course has been in the news a lot. Thank you. Almost 3,000 daily trips are predicted out of that particular project. We'll probably hear again from the folks from that area that's already inundated with development. Just a comment and a question. I know that there is a methodology, which I don't understand, in terms of generating trips based on the type of housing I think that is going in. And I'm looking at the Livenheim Estates project, which is currently in-house. And so those 14 single-family homes are each predicted to make 10 daily trips.
That's usually the rate for a single
rate,
family.
that's
That's
the rate?
usually 10 per day, yes.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, well, I guess we're on to item 9 then, which is Commissioner Corner. Do any commissioners have items to discuss?
One item,
Okay.
and it's just a question, actually, if anyone has the answer to, which is, as far as I know, there used to be school buses to go to Pawlaki, and those were taken out during COVID and never reinstated. Is that, was there, what's the ruling on school buses?
I'm not aware. I don't know if Nick knows. Yeah, I don't.
My kids
Lived
went
here a long
there.
time?
Yes, I have. But my children went to Palucky. There were never school buses to Palucky. What there were is when my kids were in junior high, I think that there were school buses that went over to Degano and Oak Crest. But those were, I think, discontinued right before my kids started there. So, and correct, I see our mobility manager nodding his head. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, that's correct. No school buses at this time, and I don't think there are any plans to bring that back anytime soon.
Okay, yeah, just, I mean, actually, just completely on your point, you know, those 10 trips per single, you know, household, a lot of that is driving the kids around, and I was
Yeah.
curious, and clearly I was misinformed, but just curious.
The issue with the school buses has really been a financial one. When there were school buses, school transportation was grossly underfunded by the state. The rule changed about 15 or 20 years ago on school busing where you could charge for riding a school bus. Before that, you could not. And when it went to a charge basis, I think the utilization started to go down. And as money goes tight for schools, you know, their funding is sort of like a sine curve, going up and down based on the economy. That was one of the things to be cut. And unless some substantial changes happen at the state level with funding, it won't be coming back.
Yeah, that is interesting. I do know that I'm pretty sure San Diego charged. You had to pay to put your kids on that bus, and that was, I mean, more than 15 years ago. And I did ride a school bus to school, but we had to pay, and that was a really long time ago. So I don't know that school buses, at least in San Diego, were ever free. I mean, I went to public school in San Diego, and I had to buy a bus ticket. Now, I'm not saying it covered the entire amount. Probably it was a subsidy or something, but yeah.
Do you think that school buses should be free of charge for the family?
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, we do provide free school buses to some of our students when it is written in their IEP. So we do have a population of students that do receive it. And would kids ride the school bus? I mean, kids in my neighborhood rode the school bus over to Degano. I watched them get on and off. So, I mean, you know.
It's like, you know, you see the SUVs line up and each one's got a kid in it.
I know,
Okay,
it's-
that's just one bus, that would take, you know, 60 SUVs out.
It would be
But
great.
If the streets are safe, then they can bike, and
Yes.
that's awesome.
Yes, they can. Any other questions?
Just a comment, I have a few years on you. I got to ride the bus for free.
Nice. Fabulous. I just had one thing I wanted to ask about the same young man, or maybe it was a different young man from the commission, I think it was. He brought up Cawdor Street and asked about bike lanes, but do you know where that is, Abe? It is right over by Capri, and he was asking he said that lots of kids come in, bike in, and he said that there's no parking on either side of that street, and he was just wondering if a bike lane, it sounded like he thought there was enough room because there was no parking. So is that something that maybe you could look into, if commissioners support that? I think you have to actually say, does anybody support that?
No, it doesn't need to be,
Oh, it doesn't need to
be a motion, but I mean,
Okay.
this, we get it from public all the time, like, can my street get a bike lane? It's not really
Okay,
something
great.
that require, you know,
I didn't
huge
know.
funding or huge design work. We'll look at it if it's possible, yeah.
Okay, fabulous, because that is in the school zone, that's right by Capri. Okay, well, thank you. Any other Commissioner Corner items? Well, I guess I will adjourn I guess I need a motion to adjourn it's been a while.
Motion
I'm
to
a little
adjourn.
rusty, sorry. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.